We all know of the ambiguous neighborhood honeybees who buzz around gardens across America, but did you know that honeybees are endangered? Honeybees are one of the most important pollinators in agriculture, spreading pollen which creates fruits, vegetables, and seeds. Even though honeybees are very common, they are threatened by diseases, parasites, and insecticides produced and sold by big agrochemical companies. The Environmental Protection Agency and the United States Department of Agriculture work to protect honeybees from these chemicals. Honeybees need to be protected from the companies producing pesticides by legislation reform because they're crucial for pollination of our crops. Ultimately, without these bees, the foods Americans eat would simply stop existing. 13 years ago, beekeepers in the United States began reporting empty hives where adult bees had vanished. What followed was a global scare of the phenomenon named colony collapse disorder. And according to Nerian and Kleinen, basically, CCD-affected colonies collapse after sudden loss of their adult populations. The bees boil out of their collapsing hives in droves. They leave behind the queen and the immature offspring and frames full of luscious golden honey and pollen. Seemingly healthy colonies gone without a trace or an explanation of why. This left scientists and beekeepers pointing fingers and possible causes of the phenomenon, and they would have to look to research to find answers. Since 2006, universities including Auburn, Michigan State, Texas A&M, and Maryland have kept track of colony losses around the country. The university data revealed during the 2018-2019 winter an estimated 37% of managed honeybee colonies in the United States were lost. This estimate is the highest level winter losses reported since the survey began in 2006. Geoffrey Williams, a professor of biology at Auburn, says he's disconcerted that we're still seeing elevated losses after over a decade of research and quite hard surveying and intense work to try to understand the reduction of colony loss. Colony collapse disorder has been studied since the first reports of disappearing bees, but colonies continue to die off, and studies implicate an increase in colony loss. With less bees and more people, the demand for food rises. With less bees comes less food, and as the United States population grows, so does the importance of our honeybees. In the article, Why Bees Are Important, by Sustan states, it is estimated that 1/3 of the food we consume each day relies on a pollination mainly by bees. If bees could no longer provide this service, it would lead to a die-off of crops. Bees are responsible for pollinating over 100 types of crops across the United States, so it only makes sense to protect them. Kurzag is a source for the scientific community, which explains the food we take for granted would stop existing without bees, including apples, onions, pumpkins, and also plants used for feeding livestock. They're making it extremely important for our milk and meat, which limited source of fresh produced meat and dairy food shortage would cause famine. It is vital for bees to pollinate the crops to secure a continuous flow of produce to American markets. The importance of bees does not stop there, no. Matt Davis is an author who writes about science and the environment. He says, bees help the economy. Every year, honeybees contribute nearly $20 billion to U.S. crops production. That's a lot. Bees are an important part of the United States economy. Many jobs would not exist if bees failed to pollinate produce. Hundreds of companies are dependent on bees to protect them and beneficial for both parties. To protect honeybees, scientists must narrow down what causes colony collapse disorder. There are several threats to bees, and no one factor is blaming for causing a colony collapse disorder. However, when the situation is magnified, it is evident that humans negatively contribute to colony collapse disorder, specifically surrounding the controversial pesticides and insecticides used by agricultural industries. Farmers use pesticides and insecticides to protect their crops from pests. And Sam Sanders from NPR News reports up to 80,000 colonies were hurt in almond farms throughout the San Joaquin Valley. Beekeepers are blaming the most recent die-offs on tank mixing, a practice of applying more than one pesticide or insecticide at once. Though these chemicals protect farmers' crops, they also can be destructive to the bees and unintentionally kill them. Having more than one chemical applied at once can have a high effect on bees. If one pesticide is mixed with another, the sublethal class of chemicals becomes a lethal class. As honeybees fly around pollinating almond trees, they are contacting these chemicals, thus infecting themselves and the hive, which could play heavily into the cause of colony collapse disorder. The bees will possibly never return to their hive because this affects the neosecticides affect the ability for basically the homing of the bees, basically to get back to their hives. These pesticides are legal, but according to Grussinger and Fletcher, exposure to sublethal doses of neosecticides is known to reduce learning ability, foraging ability, and homing ability in bees. Hives affected by colony collapse disorder occur after contact with non-lethal neonicotinoids. Neonicotinoids which lower the chance of survival for bees. If the bees cannot find the flowers, they cannot pollinate. If the bees manage to find the flowers but get lost on the way back, the hive will not survive. And according to Geoffrey Williams points out that neonicotinoids, which is the most common class of pesticides, may act as bee contraceptive. Drones exposed to the field's realistic concentrations of neonicotinoids produce 39% less living sperm, more often delivering dead sperm to the queen. Queen bees that are not fertilized are unfit to lay a brood, so she cannot reproduce more workers, causing her hive to collapse. Scientists and beekeepers know that pesticides and insecticides cause colony collapse disorder symptoms to occur in hives, yet nothing stops farmers from using these harmful chemicals. The honeybee health should be of top priority because benefiting the crops would benefit the farmers, society, and the economy. The problem is big agrochemical companies' top priority is the sale of their pesticides and insecticides. Insecticides manufacturers such as Bayer rely on farmers to buy their insecticides and pesticides to make their money. If farmers stop using pesticides, they lose millions of dollars in advertisements, research, production, and salaries. And an article by the National Geographic states, Bayer maintains that pesticides pose no threat to honeybees, which apply to crops properly, says the company's head of external communications. Promises that their products have no side effects, taking a defensive stance against accusations stating neonicotinoids are causing colony collapse disorder. Bayer's public relations department works hard to protect their assets from consumer opinion. The only problem with this is that Bayer, along with other pesticide companies, contribute to the human impact. The other factors affecting bees' health is out of the humanity's control, but stopping the use of harmful chemicals is not. To protect bees from money-hungry corporations, legislations must be passed to secure the safety of honeybees. The group in charge of keeping honeybees safe are the Environmental Protection Agency and the United States Department of Agriculture. These groups are both government-funded, with the EPA's budget sitting at just over $8 billion and the USDA is sitting at $151 billion. The EPA is responsible for regulating companies for emitting illegal pollutants or too much of a single pollutant. This encompasses all chemicals released in the environment, including pesticides. I have more actions taken by the EPA that are meant to protect. Basically, they implemented a policy in 2017 that protects bees from agricultural pesticides and spraying dust applicants while bees are under contract for pollinating of crops, and temporarily halting the approval of new outdoor neonicotinoid pesticides used until pollinator risk assessment are complete. The EPA is making efforts to protect bees, but the corporations have political lobbyists who vote against policies limiting chemical uses. Changes in policy only have its positive results can be observed. This is accomplished by surveying commercial beekeepers who monitor numbers of colonies, colony health, and colony loss in calendar year. The USDA has been funding one of the only two nationwide surveys tracking bee losses. As recently as July 19, 2019, the USDA has been taken to a step back from protecting honeybees due to the Trump administration's rolling back on Obama-era policies designed to protect pollinators. And CNN reports that the USDA has suspended data collection for its annual honeybee colonies report, citing cost cuts. The annual survey gathers data on honeybee population by state and tracks cases as CCD. And without numerical data, it is impossible to see the condition of the honeybee colony health. Tracking bee colony numbers is a step to protecting bees and magnifies human impact on bee populations. There's a lot of debate around how to help bees, but the only way to properly protect these pollinators is with consistent research and observation of how bees react to all products used in agriculture. The solution lies within legislation that can conserve our environment. No matter what we do at home, the only way to truly save bees is at the federal level. Through new environmental legislation and increased funding to organizations that track and research the health of bees, this is an issue that currently is ongoing and needs additional research in order to preserve bee colonies in the future. Bees are a pillar to contribute to holding up American society. Because of how important are the agriculture industry, if we can get our government to take action before it is too late, we may be able to preserve some of the luxuries that bees provide us for the future. If you would like to take action, you can reach your state representative of agriculture at 202-225-2861 and come in with a plan. When you go and ask for the representative, you need to know your facts. You need to know that what you're doing, you need to know your facts. You need to know that you have to be brief with the legislature. Otherwise, they really won't listen to you. Another line that you can call is Senator Kamala Harris at 202-224-3553. If there isn't something done now, American society will never look as great as it once was, and we might be stuck, eating things that we never thought we would eat. And most people aren't okay with that. Most people are pretty freaking picky. So, save the bees.